Hello and welcome to Beheaded.
Welcome to Season 6, Episode 2.
I'm Megan Moore.
And I'm Elizabeth Black.
And I don't approve of your neighbors, Elizabeth Black.
You're just coming at me hot, right from the jump.
We're going to start off as our mid-30ish-year-old, not Karens, we're like...
What's a pre-Karen?
Like a Jennifer.
A Jennifer, yeah, we're for sure
Megan.
Jennifers.
I honestly think
Megans are kind of the pre-Karens.
Megan will be the Karen in 15 years.
I don't want to be the one to start that, but I feel like that's correct.
I also don't want to offend any Jennifers, but I'm also throwing myself out there as well. Yeah. Megan is a common 80s, 90s.
Sorry, Elizabeth is so timeless. What do you want me to tell you?
Just classy. But anyways, what's up with all your neighbors?
I know.
We're at Elizabeth's house right now.
This is my home.
You can see on YouTube.
Welcome. I've had the weirdest encounters with my neighbors, and I think it increases every month that I live here. But my God, the person across the street, and we probably will hear it on the audio, because they are just outside of their house, on their motorcycle, going around.
It's like a dirt bike
all day and night. And at first, because it was a very young person that moved there, and I think they're renting. No offense to renters. But
those darn
they don't belong here. Why are they here?
They're in their 20s.
And it's just
these youngins with their motorbikes.
I think he's still in college, a young guy. And I don't know if he has a girlfriend. I don't know. He always has people over. And it'll be midnight on a Tuesday, and they will just rev all their engines or whatever you call it with their motorcycles. And I sound like such an old woman right now.
Okay.
Whatever they call it with their motorcycles.
Their noise and shit.
Yeah, and the dog will wake up in the middle of the night, bark his little head off, and then it's it wakes up the whole household, and then the dog can't go back to sleep, and then I can't go back to sleep. It's a whole thing.
All that said, we had to give in that disclaimer because they are currently
parading around.
They're playing outside right now. So if you hear some random motorcycle revving noises, I apologize.
Yeah.
We could go out there and be like, hey, we're podcasting in here.
There's serious business being conducted on these grounds. Can you stop?
If they didn't like you before, they're really not going to like
if I want
Megan coming at them being like, we're podcasting.
Yeah, if I want eggs and TP all over my house in the morning, sure.
Yeah, so we're going to be nice. What's up with other neighbors? You got some weird ones.
Neighbors are weird, man. Okay, so this was a funny incident I had, and Megan knows what I'm going to talk about. This happened when I was coming home. We were coming home from Salt Lake City. So it was right after we had our beautiful, Susanna Lipscomb journey. Mm-hmm. And, Megan's driving back to my house to drop me off. And I was like, oh, my God, I have to show you something in my neighborhood. And she's like, okay. And I told her, I was like, watch this window. As soon as you pull in this specific turn, just look at the window on this one house, and you'll know what I mean. And she was like, okay. And sure enough, as I predicted it would happen, there's always these two girls, I will say aged, I don't know, what do you think, 10 to 12-ish?
Oh, I thought a little
younger.
I would say between 7 to 10.
We clearly know child's ages very well.
I don't know.
Somewhere between 7 and 12 years old. But these two girls who almost look like twins, they're clearly sisters, and they stand at the window, just hands at their sides, staring out the window like a horror film, so scary. And they have long dark hair and kind of pale faces, like The Ring, the girl from The Ring.
Like The Shining, the two twins.
Yeah.
Just staring out the window.
And it's been a thing for months and months now. And it's funny because Robbie notices it too. So I didn't say anything for weeks, but I saw these girls every day from work. They were standing in the same position, just staring out the window. And I finally said to Robbie, I was like, do you ever see those girls when you drive up to the house? And he's like, yeah. He's like, every day.
It's so bizarre.
And I'm like,
do they need help?
Yeah.
Are they trying to escape?
To communicate? and I told Megan, and on before we even got to the house, and she's like, there's no way, they're there every day. I'm like, no, literally every day. And it was funny because during the Halloween season this year, it's the first time I saw them outside of the house. And they were both just sitting on the ground in the same position almost, just
Are they real?
I don't know. They might be ghosts.
Creepy.
But you've seen them now firsthand.
I've seen them 9 times out of 10. I actually purposely go that route now into your neighborhood.
Yes.
Just so I can pass this house. Be like, knew it. They were going to be there.
It's weird.
They don't wave. They don't smile. They're just two cats sitting on a perch, just staring out the window they missed the sun or something. It's really sad.
That's all they do is stare out the window. I'm like, they either have no entertainment, maybe. And I, commend parents that are like, hey, no TV,
Go look out the
no
window.
iPads, go look out the window for your entertainment. Maybe that's the situation, but it is so creepy.
The neighbors next to them,
Yeah.
they have 3 identical cars. They have 3 silver Toyota Camrys.
Maybe they
in
own
a row.
taxi service.
I don't know what's going on with. It's a very nice neighborhood.
Thank
it's
you.
Lovely houses.
Thank you.
The inhabitants are quite weird. Not you. You're normal.
Oh, I'm clearly the normal one.
You're the normal one, which I think really says something. I don't know. It could just be an Arizona thing too. There is weird stuff that happens in Arizona.
That's true.
As some of you know, we live in Phoenix area. I live in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
I was at Walmart the other night.
Oh, I love this already.
Walmart. It was like 6:30. It's winter, so it's dark now.
Winter.
Is it winter? It's fall.
It's fall
November.
still. I think it just turned fall.
Well, it got
But it's
dark.
cold.
It got dark. I know, it's like a whopping 70 degrees. It's freezing.
Yeah.
You think we're being dramatic. We're not. It is 70 and we're cold. I love it. I'm wearing a sweater. Sweater weather.
Cozy.
And I'm in the Walmart parking lot at night, and there are 2 giant javelinas just romping around.
For our non-Arizona friends, we should tell them what a javelina is.
We should. You can explain what a javelina is.
Oh, okay.
I don't even.
A lot of people don't know what this is. And to be fair, I didn't before I moved here.
And I was just in California.
You're right. So a javelina is like a wild boar. It looks kind of like a warthog, I guess. And they're generally like, I would say taller. Like they have tall backs.
They're
and they're
huge.
They're kind of narrow, but they've got tall backs. Like I don't know how to describe that.
Pumbaa from The Lion King.
But like more vertical.
A tall Pumbaa
and
tall legs.
Yeah, tall legs, and they have tusks, and they're usually like all black.
Giant teeth.
Huge teeth.
They're dangerous. They will bite and charge you if they feel threatened.
Exactly. And they usually travel in packs. So there's usually like a family or a couple families. Like they're very scary if you see them in the wild.
Well, they were hanging out at Walmart. They went up to the Wendy's, which is in the Walmart parking lot, and they're running. There's 2 of them.
Yeah.
Boyfriend-girlfriend situation.
Little Bonnie and Clyde.
Pumbaa with his cute little girlfriend.
Cute.
And they were just running around the Wendy's.
You said they were like playing tag.
Imagine you're coming out with your Frosty
Oh my
and
God.
your little cup of chili.
As you do at Wendy's.
Does anyone else get chili at Wendy's?
I used to, actually.
They sell it now. They sell it in cans.
They do?
Mm-hmm.
That was
It's
my
stupid
mom's
expensive.
go-to. Like anytime we went to Wendy's, because I think that was obviously her like healthy option there.
Chili with
chili.
the baked potato.
Yeah. So
We digress.
brings back memories.
And the Pumbas are just not Pumas, but Pumbaa.
Yeah.
Not the horse, the pigs. The wild pigs are just running amok, and I'm like, what the hell is happening here in Arizona right now?
Scary.
So that's been my week.
And normally those things don't really go near like people. Like they'll be in neighborhoods at night when no one's out, but they don't really go to like a fast food joint that's pretty crowded,
In the Walmart during after work hours.
Yeah, it's
bizarre.
Weird week.
So bizarre.
I know.
What's going on with you?
Well,
Besides your weird neighbors and the motocross and
yeah, besides my my neighborhood, I did host a little Day of the Dead party this year, which was a lot of fun. You came.
I came.
I'm like, it was so fun. Megan, would you like to comment?
I'd be like, wow, I didn't get the invite. It was very intimate, I will say.
Thank you. Yeah, it was like a smaller gathering.
It was nice.
And because we had other plans on Halloween, and Halloween was on Thursday, and we had a friend come in town, so we're like, let's just throw a little like Day of the Dead thing, more of like a dinner party type situation on Friday night, which was Day of the Dead. And I've never actually celebrated Day of the Dead before, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Because like I bought all of these little like candle holders, and I put candles everywhere throughout the house. I did kind of just like these, I don't know, tissue poof things that were very decorative all around. They kind of looked like little marigolds or little mums. And I made an ofrenda, which is like, if you don't know what an ofrenda is and you've never seen Coco, first of all, go see Coco because it's amazing. But an ofrenda is like a table where it's like an altar. You have a table where you have pictures of loved ones that have passed away, and you have little candles, and you're supposed to put things at the ofrenda that your family enjoyed when they were alive. So it's normally a kind of a more like serious thing, and it's more of a celebration of life. But I wanted to make it kind of funny because not everyone knew each other at this event. So I was like, it'd be cool if some people kind of took it serious and sent pictures of their childhood dog or their grandparent. But what if it was like somebody put something that passed on like my dream of becoming like a NASA astronaut or like something kind of silly.
Things lost.
Things that were lost. And so Megan had 2 great submissions, and I'd like you to share with the group.
I had one that was the golden doodle I never had because I got scammed on Craigslist with my quote unquote golden doodle.
Yeah.
Back when golden doodles were super cool back in 2015. I mean, they still are, but everyone wanted a golden doodle.
Right.
And
so did Megan.
Penny is not a golden doodle.
Damn.
She's we like to call her a Shih Tzu Kakawawa.
Shih Tzu Kakawawa.
All the bad words. She's a Shih Tzu Poodle Cocker Spaniel Chihuahua. I have no idea when we picked her up. But.
And to be fair, when you bought her as a puppy, she looked like a golden doodle.
Yeah.
That's why you called her Penny, because she was like that copper color.
With floppy ears.
Yep.
I can't say I regret it because I love her. And I'd like to think I saved her. I was really young. Moving forward, I would only ever adopt. I was like, mad at myself that I was in that point of time as a young 20-year-old. We
didn't know better.
Yeah, I mean, it was a decade ago. And whatever. Yeah. Please don't judge me. That was my old self. Don't shop, adopt. I'm all for that. Moving forward, I will support all the mutts in the world because I have one. Anyways, and then I was so mad. I had Elizabeth and Robbie over for dinner one night. And Robbie's kind of a good cook. He's
pretty damn good.
He's a pretty good cook.
Yeah.
I can make a couple things. One dish I'm really good at making is beef short ribs. And I slow cook them in the oven for like 4 or 5 hours with red wine and garlic and rosemary. And by the time you pull them out, you pick up the bone and the meat just falls off. And I was ready for Robbie to be like, oh my God, Megan, so good.
And like raise a glass to Megan, like on this beautiful meal.
Yep. Well, I forgot to cover it in tinfoil, which is very important because it keeps in the moisture.
The juices.
All the juices. And I just totally forgot that step. I just was frantic. I don't know. Anyways, the other parts of my La Frenda, am I saying that right?
No. Ofrenda.
Ofrenda.
Yeah.
Was my burnt, tough, rubbery beef short ribs.
Short rib, which turned out really well in the picture. It was just like a black mess.
The short ribs that were lost to me. I will never be able to redeem myself to Robbie ever again.
It's okay. He still ate it. He enjoyed it. It just wasn't as wonderful as you wanted it to be.
Bless his soul.
But it made for great conversation around the ofrenda. It's like you had some serious conversation of like, oh, you know, my childhood dog, this and that. You talked about your dog. And then there was like, oh, and Megan's short rib. It was funny. I thought it turned out really well.
It was a cute idea. I definitely approved of it. Yeah. It was a good conversation starter because a lot of us didn't know each other.
Exactly.
It was a good mingling opportunity. So good job.
So
done. And it looked like Coco.
That's what I was going for. I really wanted to put Coco on in the background.
It was for a little bit.
Oh, we forced it on, me and you, because like Robbie was like, well, there's college football on, so we got to put that on. I was like, there's no good games, and I love football. I was like, and it's a party, like, no one here is a sports fan except for me and you. So like, no, like let's put on Coco. And then he won the argument. And then sure enough, Megan comes in. She's like, why is it Coco on?
I feel like we're missing something.
So we just like snuck to the background and changed it.
Never said a thing.
No, he knows what the people want. Anyway.
All right. Well, really quick, before we get into the actual story of the episode, we're going to do a really quick break and we'll be right back.
Before we get into our execution story, we wanted to give a huge thank you to everyone who has helped support Beheaded Podcast.
As you may know, we are working to upgrade our audio and visual equipment, and we need your help in making that happen.
We want to give a very special shout out to some of our highest contributors, including the Queen of Hearts, Tori, Elizabeth from Tennessee, and our friends over at Ambivalent Offenders. It means so much to us.
If you enjoy listening to Beheaded, there are a few ways that you can show your support.
The easiest thing you can do right now as you're listening is to leave us a rating wherever you find our show.
Like, follow, and share our content on social media, especially Instagram and YouTube.
You can also buy us a coffee, whether it's $1 or £100.
Ooh, how much is £100?
More than $1. But anything you send will go directly towards our technology upgrades and keeping this podcast going.
And now, back to the execution.
All right, guys. So now it's time for our story of the evening. And this was actually a listener submitted one that we didn't know about.
Yes, thank you, Brandy, for bringing this one to my attention. I have never heard of this person or this whole scenario before.
Yeah.
And I love hearing the suggestions. Please keep them coming. We love to hear them.
Exactly. And there was like a few layers to this story because on first glance, we're like, okay, this is kind of a cool story. We'll have to flesh it out a little bit. But once we started reading it and kind of going in different rabbit holes, we're like, this is a really cool period of time that we haven't really focused on before. So we're excited to get into all of it. But our man of the evening is Jeremiah Brandreth.
Good job.
Did I say it correctly?
Yes.
I know, like, English words are hard for us.
We struggle on the French words
I know.
and the English words.
And you know me, it's just because my handwriting and I can't tell what are E's versus A's, and it just gets real messy. So, Brandreth. So Jeremiah was born in Wilford, Nottingham in about 1785. And we don't know much about his early life because he was, in fact, not a noble person. But we know that he was a stocking maker. And if you don't know what a stocking is, you know, it's like a sock.
Good job.
It's like tights. They're tights,
Yeah.
would you say? What's the difference between tights and stockings?
I think like the thickness of it.
And maybe the length.
When I think stockings, well, there's pantyhose, which is really thin.
Okay.
Which I don't think they had back then. There's, I don't know, is a stocking more like a sock?
I think so. So I think it's like, okay, there's like pantyhose, which is thin. There's tights, which are thicker. And then a stocking, which is thickest and maybe only go so high to like thigh.
You know, we did our research on our textiles.
We didn't, but I think that sounds good.
Go with it.
Anyway, so stocking maker by trade. And the only thing we know of his early-ish life is he married a woman named Anne Bridget when he was about 26 years old in September 1811. And they had 3 children together. And that's the last you'll hear about his family. I love when that happens.
Sometimes things just come up and you're like, whatever happened to their husband? No, don't care.
And that's all. But where his story starts to get juicy in his life is in his late 20s, early 30s. He starts getting involved with something that are called Luddite activities. And what are Luddite activities? Well, the Luddites were people that were generally involved in kind of organizing protests, revolts, raids against like new technology that was introduced in their factories. So obviously he's a stocking maker, so he probably works at like a textile mill. And at this point in time, this is like right in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, which if you're curious, the dates of the Industrial Revolution are technically like, I think it's 1760 to 1840-ish. So this is right in the middle of all that. And the Industrial Revolution was a time, like the name states, where new machines were coming out to really like improve processes in factories, like replace a lot of the labor with machines, you know, maybe speeding up certain things that used to take forever. So this was a main point, like turning point in history where all these factories are reevaluating how they're doing business. And obviously that's tough for you if your sole job is to make stockings. And now you're being told, well, this machine can make the stockings. And maybe we just need someone who doesn't have your craftsmanship or skill work to just press a button. So you're really like displacing a lot of people in work at this point.
I mean, I kind of feel like this is a problem that has never really gone away. It's just evolved.
Exactly.
There's people today who are afraid of AI and ChatGPT and things taking over their jobs as well. And then I think of, remember Charlie in the Chocolate Factory? He worked at the toothpaste factory, and he got fired because a machine was taking over of screwing on little toothpaste
Exactly.
caps.
It's like always some sort of machine, right? Whether it's a machine that creates something or computer or calculator, like there's things that are going to just take up the manual work that used to be real jobs. So this Luddite movement began, and it wasn't just textile workers, it was like croppers and, you know, people that worked in different factories. But in this specific area of England, it was mostly like textile mills that were kind of involved in these activities. So the men who, and I'll say men because I don't think any women worked in the factories at this time.
Fontine's not here yet over in France.
I know.
Away.
They were the ones who would kind of organize, and sometimes they'd go so far as to like go into the factories and like destroy the machines. So they were like really upset, obviously, by all of this. So there'd be these organized raids. The reason they were named the Luddites is because there was a quote unquote legendary weaver named Ned Ludd, who was kind of the one to like start this general feeling of resentment towards the new machines coming in. And it's funny now because even if you call someone a Luddite or a neo-Luddite, it means you're a person that opposes new technology, which is kind of fun. I've never heard of that word, actually.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
In Downton Abbey, what was her name? The cook.
Mrs. Padding.
Yeah, Mrs. Padmore.
Padmore.
In like the first or second episode, she was afraid of installing lights in the abbey, in the mansion, the estate. But yeah, it feels like this is something that's just always kind of been an issue, and I don't think it's going away.
No.
But if anything has taught us in history, kind of have to evolve. It's going to happen whether we want it to or not.
Yep.
Let's see how we can grow with it, not against it.
Because you're never going to, unfortunately, win that argument.
Like you will.
Again, like seeing these factories, like seeing computers, seeing AI, like unfortunately, it's just the next step. And we all have to evolve. And it's not like sometimes that change is uncomfortable and not fun, especially if it replaces a skill that you yourself have been working on. But again, hopefully we can all get into the new era seamlessly.
You've got to be like Charlie's dad from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where he got a job to learn how to fix the machine.
There you go.
Put the toothpaste caps.
So
on.
be an engineer, you'll be fine.
All right, I'm off my soapbox.
I like that. So really quick, just to talk a little bit more about what's going on in like Britain overall at this time. So 1810 to 1812, like the British economy was really down bad. And there was just high unemployment. The inflation rate was going crazy. And this was all like exacerbated by the fact that there was still like wars going on in France with Napoleon, and still escalating tensions with the US. The American Revolution ended in 1783. So this is only, like 15 years afterwards.
How long? Yeah.
So there's still just a lot of like angst and like tension. And at this point now there's again these raids against the machine.
Did you just get an episode name?
Maybe. I like that.
Write that down. You've got the pen.
Here, here. Yep. Just make sure you Nope.
How do you work your pen?
You just move that mechanism.
Okay,
there you go. So there's violence, there's protest, and the middle and upper classes are really sticking with the government on all of this. They're like supporting the government and saying, hey, like we need to squash these rebellions because they want to continue to live their nice lives and they don't really give a damn about the working class. So the working class is kind of being suppressed by the government and the armies who are coming in to like squash these rebellions. So the Luddites got really extra passionate about their cause because now they're just being like stifled by the government, and they compared their struggles to essentially that of the American Revolution and the French Revolution, which had just happened. And so you kind of had these conflicting philosophies at the time where it's like, on one hand, upper middle class and government and army, and on the other hand, you have the working class, and you had a lot of other people like express sympathy towards them, like Lord Byron was a big defender of the Luddites. Yeah. I think you said someone else too from your research.
Later on at the end, there was another poet who had some phrasings about all that's about to go down.
Okay, perfect. We'll get to that. So essentially, again, just a big chasm, which isn't that different than today. I feel like
I'm gonna say it, but it's been a week.
It's been a week.
It depends on when you're listening to this. But
check on your American friends, everybody.
We're recording this on November 9th, just for context.
Yes. So that is essentially what's going on in the political landscape at the time. So now we have our man of the evening, Jeremiah, who's kind of, again, I would say your late 20s, early 30s is probably the most, most likely time in your life when you're probably going to join a movement like that, because you're not quite young and immature and in the dark about issues. You're at the point where you're learning a lot about, what's going on around you, but you still are young enough to have kind of that like fire and that passion and that anger towards a lot of things.
You see your whole future ahead of you, and you're really paving the ground.
Yeah, and he's got 3 kids.
What do you want your future to be like, your kids' futures to be like?
Exactly. So at this point, it is now 1817, and he meets someone named William J. Oliver.
Yes, remember this name, Oliver. We're going to come back to him. But so Jeremiah is, again, part of this movement. It's 1817. He meets Oliver, and this guy Oliver is convincing to put together a rebellion, get 50,000 men together to go storm the Tower of London.
Yeah, our favorite place.
so much weird history with the tower.
I know.
That's more than just what you would expect.
Yeah.
Throughout the centuries, and here we are in the 1800s, and people are still seeing this as this figure of government, of maybe a lot of oppression.
Yep.
And it's a very symbolic place for them to want to go and make their statement. So 50,000 men, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's the goal. That's the end goal. Will we get there? Gotta find out.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned as I talk, as I'm speaking
right now.
in this moment, and I'm telling you the story. June 9th, 1817, they decide that they're going to do it. They're going to start this rebellion. They're all the way in Nottingham.
North
North
of
London. We're each pointing in different directions.
Should have consulted a map, but northish.
Northish.
I like that you look behind you, like the answers are on the wall.
Is that a map?
That's a map of Middle Earth.
Yes.
Yes.
Nottingham is north of Middle Earth.
Of Erebor.
I think Robin Hood. Sherwood Woods. And
wait, that's what it's called, right? Sherwood. Why can't I think of that?
Sherwood.
I've had like that kind of day where
Sherwood.
Sherwood Forest.
Forest. Megan Clausen, who was the author on our show a few seasons back, who wrote the book Falling Hard for the Royal Guard.
Nice.
She's from Nottingham.
Oh, that's right.
And I thought that was cool because I was like, Robin Hood. And I'm like, oh, she probably gets that all the time.
I know.
Like, yes, like Robin Hood.
I do.
That's me.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're meeting at Robin Hood. They're meeting with Robin Hood.
Great name for a bar.
At Nottingham. Wouldn't it be? I bet they have some good ones there.
Yeah.
They do meet at a bar.
Oh.
It's not called the Robin Hood. It's called the White Horse.
Great name for a bar.
I swear we've been to a pub called
I think
the White
we've
Horse.
been to a few called the White Horse. That's what they name their pubs in London. It's just a color and an animal.
Some type of adjective with an object.
Yeah. The black swan.
The fat horse.
The purple monkey.
The fox, the toad, the goat, it's all in there.
It's all stuff like that.
They meet at this pub called the White Horse, and they're getting together their men, and they're also trying to like receive bread and meat and ales and all the necessities and the resources that they're going to need for this big journey to get from Nottingham. Their goal is to just keep accumulating more men as the march goes on. I don't know how many people they started with. But
It didn't say.
The goal is 50,000, so I don't think there's that many people living in Nottingham. So I'm sure they had some goals and numbers of trying to,
Yeah. And I always wonder too, because like obviously a lot of these men in this like same towns probably work in the same places, so those guys are probably easy to like rally up, right?
Yeah, they'll probably work at the factory together,
right? And then anyone else, like say you just got some drunk men, you just give them a drink and kind of convince them to sign their name on the dotted line.
You don't have to tell them where you're going. Just, hey, we have cheese and
ale, beer.
Come with us.
I'll go.
They were very lightly armed. There were a few guns, but most of them just had pikes, and their whole slogan, their whole mission was end poverty forever.
It's a very ambitious goal. I think you need a little clearer objectives than that. I think just ending poverty forever, it sounds nice, but like how?
Very high level. Very big picture thinking. Just end poverty forever. Cool, we're on board.
Great.
But they also had one demand. They wanted to wipe out the national debt. Cool. So do we all.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me
I think
too.
That's a common theme. I mean, it's not wrong.
It's not incorrect.
That was their one like big thing that they wanted to like. Well, I mean, of course, all the machinery and stuff, but that was their demand.
Okay.
Was you need to wipe the national debt. So okay.
And happiness for all.
And happiness for all.
Great.
Peace, love, and charity.
Love it. Yes.
10 p.m. They are now trying to find some weapons. I think they're realizing they just have some sticks and pikes and beer and cheese, and they might need. They're going to the Tower of London.
Right.
They might need some more.
A little more artillery.
They start raiding the town a little bit to try to get these weapons. One house in particular, it was a widow named Mary Hepworth with her two young boys who they were living in this house, and she refused to open the door for them. She said, "Nope. Not having these shenanigans happening."
Right.
And she locks the door. And our buddy Jeremiah gets a little bit violent, and this is the first time people are starting to see it. He shoots because he has a gun now. He shoots in the window and kills her servant.
Ooh.
And the men that he's with are like, ooh.
Too far, buddy.
Yeah, did we really want to go there? Did we want to get that violent? Now we're killing people?
Right.
and they were threatening to leave, and he was saying, if you leave, I'm going to kill you too.
Wow. So totally different side of him just kind of popped out there.
Yeah, if you're trying to think of the character, I think we're understanding more of the type of guy he is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes it worse or better of like what happens to him, but
yeah,
he did kill an innocent person and felt very little remorse for it.
And seemed to kind of double down on that, like then just threaten more lives.
Just kill more.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he actually killed more people, but we know at least one person he did.
Yes.
They then head to the butlery company. Butterly.
Do you think they make butter or textiles?
It was a manufacturer.
Okay.
Actually, maybe it was butter.
We could say whatever we want. We did look it up, and it was very vague. It was like, it's a factory that manufactures things.
You know what? I bet none of you know what it is either. So we're just going to say we know, and you're going to have to believe it.
I bet you we have one listener who like knows this intimately.
It's not a butter factory. They made wind chimes.
You don't know the famous Butterly wind chime factory? God, Megan.
The factory like manager, George Goodwin.
Named Megan.
Megan Jennifer Goodwin.
Oh, Jennifer Goodwin's a real name. That's the actress, right?
It is.
She plays Snow White.
She has short hair.
Okay, sorry. Continue.
He has constables with him. He somehow got word that all these guys were coming, and the constables, the police are with him. They go into a standoff, and Jeremiah starts noticing people are leaving his side. They're like, I'm out. There's police involved now.
The cheese is gone.
The butter is barely being made in the butter factory.
Yep.
So whatever. So some people leave, but that doesn't stop them. They break through the standoff. They continue marching on through Condor, Langley Mill.
Yes.
Is that right?
I think so. Langley Mill.
They start forcing town folk to join this big march of theirs. So whether you like it or not, they've got weapons now.
Yeah.
So they are going to get their 50,000 men one way or another.
Right.
And they wanted more beer and bread and cheese. It started to rain. That was kind of crappy. More people started leaving. They're like, there's no cheese. There's no beer. You promised bread. And now it's raining. I'm out. So Jeremiah's looking behind him, and it's just dwindling.
Yes.
The numbers are going down. They don't like the rain. Lack of cheese situation. Ugh.
I get it. I mean, it's raining and you're running out of resources, you know?
It's a tough life.
I don't know how long I'd stay, personally.
They were like, I really didn't think I'd make it this far to begin with.
Right.
So you're lucky I got to...
It does remind me, I think it was the Robert Devereaux episode that we did, where like he shows up to, was it Hampton Court? I forget which palace it was he shows up to, but he's trying to...
Whitehall or something.
Yeah, but he's trying to like confront Queen Elizabeth, and the intention was to confront her with essentially like a giant crowd. And it was like, few guys.
Never works.
And he's like, hey, here I am with my mob. She's like, really?
You look behind and there's 3 people behind you. Yeah. One guy's like picking his nose.
Yeah, exactly. One guy's drunk in his saddle.
Looking a little weak there.
Yeah.
That's what Jeremiah was dealing with.
Exactly. So at this point, like they kind of know it might be over. And so they finally get to this place called Giltbrook. Again, continuing to look for men and resources and weapons and cheese. And they were met by 20 dragoons, which are essentially like English troops. So they officially, once they see people like in uniform and they know, okay, it's not just like some factory clerk trying to stop us. Like
it's not just the constable of the town.
Exactly. It's like the actual army.
The military now.
What was left of this tiny crowd scatters. So now it is not 50,000 men. It's nowhere near that. 40 were captured right on site by 20 dragoons. So two men per dragoon.
That's an average classroom here in America, 40 kids.
Yeah, so they rounded up them, and everyone else fled, including Jeremiah. So Jeremiah managed to get away. And then we don't know what happened during the next few months, but he was essentially, I think, in either hiding or laying low so he could maybe, do something else with his movement. But he's nowhere to be found for a while until that fall. So this is June, remember? So a few months later, come November-ish, 35 people were brought to Old Bailey. And Jeremiah is in fact one of them. Ooh. And we've talked about Old Bailey before, but it is an old courthouse. They kept very good records. You could still find a lot of information on Old Bailey. I know. And so they bring these 35 people in with the specific I guess, objective of like saying these people are charged with high treason because they were a part of the uprising.
Which there's a name for it now.
Oh, there is the Pentridge uprising.
Where did that name come from?
Pentridge was the White Horse pub was in Pentridge.
Oh,
yes.
I didn't even bother to think of that, to be honest.
Yeah, that was like I've read it before.
Rising. Sorry, the Pentridge Rising.
Sounds like a Phoenix Rising. Like sounds like the name of a book or a movement. But the Pentridge Rising became the name of this, I guess, alleged or not alleged,
like failed.
Yeah, like failed attempt to storm the Tower of London. So Jeremiah, along with two of his co-conspirators, named William Turner, which I love, and Isaac Ludlam. And if you don't know William Turner, which you should.
You should.
It's from Pirates of the Caribbean. We got such a kick out of reading it.
Will Turner.
Yeah. Bootstrap Bill.
I also wanted to learn more about William Turner, and my dumb self is Googling William Turner, and I just got a lot of very lovely photos of Orlando Bloom.
Can't complain about that.
Not a lot about William Turner of the Pentridge Rising of 1817.
No.
But,
I was looking at Megan, I was like, oh, you found information on him? Because she was Googling for quite a while. She's like, oh no, I'm just looking at Orlando Bloom and Johnny Depp. I'm like, that's fine.
I mean, when you go down that rabbit hole, you keep on it.
Yeah, hard to get out of that one. Even last episode, we did the Dewberry episode, and obviously Johnny Depp is in that movie, the Jean Dewberry movie. So a lot of Johnny Depp in our lives lately.
Yeah, Johnny Depp themed season, maybe.
Should we just keep it going?
Yeah.
What else can we do?
Edward Scissorhands, did he ever execute anyone with his scissors?
Probably.
He killed someone.
Gilbert Grape? Is there any executions in Gilbert Grape?
I love Gilbert Grape.
Megan's favorite movie.
We've all got that one movie that's terrible, but you will never admit that it's a terrible movie and you need to stop watching it.
I don't want to like go into all of this right now.
Sorry, we're
but
going on a tangent.
No, but I just want to say one thing about Gilbert Grape and like
we could talk. We'll do a whole episode on Gilbert Grape.
No, I just want to say that like I'd known Megan for a few years before I watched Gilbert Grape with her, and I always was like, why does she like this weird random like 90s movie?
I quote it all the time.
And then once I watched it, I realized, and I don't even want to say all the reasons, but it all made sense. I just want to say it all made sense because it was all of Megan's like fascinations in life wrapped into one movie, and I was like, oh, yeah.
It's a really terribly good movie.
It wasn't that bad.
From 1993 or 4.
Yeah. Johnny Depp's very handsome.
we won't go on Gilbert Grape too much, but you should watch it. Highly recommend. I give it like a 2 out of 10 rating.
If you haven't
watch it.
If you haven't seen Coco or Gilbert Grape, tonight's your night. Okay, so anyway, finally,
where were we?
Jeremiah, William Turner, and Isaac Ludlam are all among these 35. They're the ones that are, because they're probably a lot of the ringleaders assembling people, they are convicted of high treason.
Ugh.
Yeah, and their original sentence, because we know how traitors are treated, they always get the worst sentences. Their original sentence was drawn and quartering, which for the early 1800s is pretty medieval.
Pretty archaic of them.
Yeah.
At the times. I thought they were just hanging people at this point.
Well, the guillotine was already invented.
Guns are available.
There's guns. You could have a firing squad. You could have a guillotine. Like, there's a lot of clean, quote unquote, clean ways to execute people. And the fact that in 1800s, they're like, yeah, just fucking...
disembowel them.
Just disembowel them, burn their insides, and quarter them.
Make sure they're alive while you're doing this.
Yeah.
And there's a big crowd to watch.
Yeah. So that was really dramatic. But luckily, George, the Prince Regent, reduced their sentence to just a simple hanging at the neck followed by a beheading. So there is a beheading, but it was intended to be after they were already killed.
Post-humanist? What do they call it? There's a word for it.
I can never pronounce the word because I can read it and I can't say it. It's posthumously.
Humously, I think.
Is that right?
Like postmortem.
Please correct us.
Don't correct us. I'm freaking tired of people correcting me.
No, we need it. We need to learn this.
I know I said I wanted to learn, but I will teach you something.
Okay.
George, the Prince of Regent, who's the guy who reduced.
He's not the Prince of Regent. He's the Prince Regent.
The Prince Regent.
Yeah.
I don't know why I had an of in there. And
I like it though.
Prince of Egypt.
My God.
Sorry,
Also a banger. Please watch that movie.
Great soundtrack.
Okay, continue.
Sorry, we're really giggly tonight.
Continue.
This is also just our first glass of wine.
I know.
This is just us. We're sorry for who we are.
Well, if my neighbor didn't get us all riled up, it's fine.
Okay, but George the Prince Regent is later King George IV.
Mm-hmm.
He was regent. Normally we think of a regent as someone who is
mother or father
ruling on behalf of a
Yeah.
child because they're not old enough to make adult decisions.
Mm.
He was actually the son of and regent to King George III, Mad King George, think American Revolution,
Right.
married to Queen Charlotte. I saw his bed and
Where?
her bed. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this.
What do you mean? Oh.
After I drop everything. Last time over the summer when I went to Hampton Court Palace and I saw a friend, Mr. James Peacock. He was so kind to show... Our light went off, sorry.
Okay.
He was so kind to show me a room that is not open to the public.
No.
Yeah, you weren't there. I'm so sorry.
Megan.
And it had it was Queen Charlotte and King George III's quarters, their bedrooms, and it had their original beds in there, and they were the beds that you could break down and transport, and it was the bed that she gave birth to everyone in and stuff.
Everyone.
Everyone that came out of her. Anyways.
That's so cool.
When I think King George III, I'm like, oh, I saw his bed.
Yeah.
And
I'm so jealous of that. I always think of little things like that, like the pink room at Hever Castle.
Oh, yeah.
The bathroom. Cool. And when I was at Versailles, obviously they only show you certain rooms in Versailles. Versailles is huge. Sure. And I was like, man, we just did the Dewberry episode. If there could have been a way to have a private tour of the Dewberry apartments, because she had her own area. She spent some time at Petit Trianon. But she had her whole area of Versailles Palace, and I've seen it on YouTube videos, and it's beautiful. So cool. And they just refurbished them in the last couple of years,
or the Thomas More cell in the Tower of London. Anyways, sorry, we are going to get back though. We're in 1812. Mm-hmm. So at this point, you are continuing on.
Okay, so thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
So at this point, again, the sentence is reduced. And the execution is officially slated to take place November 7th, 1817. And they decide to do this outside in front of 6,000 spectators at the Derby jail. And it's quite a crowd. Remember that these are not noble people, so it's not a private execution. It is in front of a lot of people, and it's meant to be a very public display.
They did have guards ready just because they were anticipating there could be some trouble. Mm-hmm. They're putting on display traitors, murdering traitors in front of them as a reminder to everyone else, hey, don't do this because this is what's going to happen to you. But those were also probably a lot of their supporters because they are poor, they are impoverished, and that's what the traitors were trying to fight for. They were trying to fight for their rights and remember, end poverty for all, forever. What was the quote? It was end poverty forever. Yeah,
exactly.
So they were just anticipating there could be some disturbances during the execution. So tensions were a little bit high. Mm-hmm. All three of them were hanged. Again, it was our buddy William Turner, Jeremiah, and then Isaac Ludlam.
Yep.
They were hanged for about 30 minutes.
That's a long time.
Because we've talked about this before. There wasn't a drop. There wasn't a scaffolding with the contraption where they could drop them down.
Right, like a trap door that you just fall through.
They would have just probably kicked a barrel or something underneath them or pushed them off a ladder. So they'd be hanging for a while. In other circumstances, if people want them to die faster, they might pull on their legs. But they wanted they were being reduced from a hang, drawn, and quartering, so they weren't going to get out easy.
Yeah.
It is said that Isaac Ludlam perhaps was still alive when this next step happened.
Ooh.
Likely weak. They probably assumed he was dead. And of course, these all just come from accounts of people, word of word. And it could have just been something I saw him open his eyes, and perhaps not. But,
right.
So then they were beheaded post-mortem. I'm just going to say it like
after
that.
They were hanged, after they died.
There were a lot of creepy details about this.
Yeah.
They put them on a board, like a plank, which was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And they positioned Jeremiah's face in such a way where his eyes were wide open, and people said that it looked like he was just staring at the audience.
The crowd.
I guess it's not really an audience, but the crowd of people. So that was kind of creepy.
Yeah.
They also didn't have a clean cut, even though it was with an axe, and he wasn't squirming or anything. I mean, he was already gone.
Oof.
So his eyes were open. They didn't sever his head right away.
Right.
The assistant to the executioner took out his knives to finish the job.
And had to just saw right through the rest.
Sawed through it.
Gross, man.
He holds his head up to the left, to the right.
Yep.
Says, "Here's a traitor."
And the crowd didn't react the way they wanted to. They wanted people to cheer for the death of a traitor.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, the crowd, again, because there's probably a lot of supporters in this crowd, are very solemn and they don't cheer, which is unusual.
Imagine the awkward silence.
Yeah, it's like the executioner's showing his prize to everybody and no one's cheering.
Good job. You
They're
had to knife your way through on that. And then he throws the head into the crowd.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's what I said. He threw the head into the crowd, and that's when no one was, probably because they threw a bloody head at him. He's like, dude.
He was like, damn it, cheer.
I didn't come for this.
Oh,
I missed an important step here.
Yes.
Coming from William Turner, our buddy Will.
Bootstrap Bill, as some call him.
Right before they put the noose around his neck, he made a statement.
Yes.
He said, "This is all the work of the government and Oliver."
Oliver.
Remember
Remember that name that we had mentioned earlier?
And I said, remember his name.
Yes. So Oliver, and I'll let you talk about him because you know a bit more, but Oliver was the person that Jeremiah had met back in 1817. Well, this is still the same year. But earlier in the year, the one who convinced him to march on the Tower of London with 50,000 men. And his nickname was Oliver the Spy because it was believed that he actually was working on behalf of the government.
But Jeremiah didn't know it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So Oliver the Spy was a police informer. And if you would notice, Oliver wasn't there during the rebellion, the whole march.
Yeah.
Gathering everyone at the pubs and going from location to location and getting the townsfolk.
He wasn't arrested.
Wasn't there. Turns out, and this is all actually released in the news shortly after the trial. So what's funny is I guess the press, you could call it. They had press back then.
They did.
The press wasn't allowed to report on anything until after the sentencing was done. I'm sure it was kind of fast.
Yeah.
But after the executions were complete, a fella releases the information. He was really curious when he's like, wait, Oliver. And he started doing a deep investigation with enough evidence that he published this in the Leeds Mercury. Turns out Oliver the Spy was a police informer. He was not a revolutionist, but he came off as one and he told everyone.
Sneaky.
The way that they found this out was he was a part of another big raid rebellion, similar motives.
Right. And
everybody there was arrested. And someone who was just a witness, he wasn't one who was arrested. The next day, he saw Oliver in a crowd. And he goes, why aren't you arrested? Weren't you just at that raid? And I saw them arrest you. Why are you here now?
He's like, That's
exactly what he did. He was just awkwardly backed up and just mid-sentence walked away.
Bolted. What'd you say? I can't hear you. Good seeing you. Bye.
Bye. I got things to do.
Yeah.
So that was the first inclination that he was likely not an actual revolutionist. And then at this point, it did come out that he was a two-time spy.
Two-time
spy. And what he would do is he would instigate these rebellions and these marches to happen. He would convince everybody to do it, just like what he did with Jeremiah and his leaders. And then he would tell the police what was going on, and they'd scoop them all up and arrest them.
Which I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, listeners or Megan, but
yes,
isn't that entrapment, right? Is that what you call it? Like, it's the legal term for...
I don't know if they cared back then, but
right, but it's like you set someone up, like you kind of force them into something, and then you're like, aha, I got you, you're in trouble. You're like, well, you can't be the reason they're in trouble and then put them in trouble. But yeah, so Oliver was accused on the scaffold, again, of being a two-time spy. Which was pretty confirmed. And again, whether or not he was the sole cause of that, who knows, right? Yes, he might have convinced Jeremiah, but Jeremiah's hands weren't clean. Like, he obviously killed a servant. He was threatening the lives of other people. He was really leading this whole rebellion. So I think whether Oliver was in the picture or not, like, things probably would have turned out very similarly.
That's a good point. They put all the blame on him.
Yeah, maybe just the sheer number of people that he wanted to have be in the revolt was a big part of it. Maybe that was the tipping point. I don't know. But it is interesting, you know, in terms of Jeremiah and his character. It's like, well,
Jeremiah was a bullfrog.
that's exactly right, Megan.
Sorry, I've been holding that in this whole episode.
Yeah, during research time, Megan was
several times
chanting it a bit. But yeah, so once they're officially, you know, dead, gone, beheaded, they are, I think, buried in Derby, I want to say. And at the Derby Museum, there's actually still that board Megan referenced.
Yeah,
I know.
See it. I want to see it. If you've ever seen it, let us know. I'm curious. Give us pictures.
Exactly.
Really quick. Sorry. One last thing. I also think perhaps William Turner and the others were so like pissed off at Oliver.
Right.
They were probably feeling really stupid that they were like the only ones who didn't know this. Because the news that Oliver was Oliver the Spy hadn't reached Nottingham yet.
So, like, it had already been discovered.
It had been
somewhere.
discovered. News was just traveling slowly. They didn't have text messages and whatever.
Shoot.
Yeah.
No notifications on their iPhones.
Didn't come fast enough and whatever.
Right.
But I wonder if that's just also why they were mad, because they could have known had someone have just told them and they wouldn't have moved forward.
That's everything. True. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So see, technology isn't that bad, everybody.
Yeah, now don't they wish they had some good
maybe if you weren't such a Luddite, okay? If you weren't so opposed to evolving technology.
Oh, anyway, so aftermath.
Yeah, so just a little bit of a few things that happened after this execution. It was actually the last execution by an axe. Like, it was the last decapitation by an axe. And even though they weren't killed that way, right? Like, they were hanged first and then beheaded. It was still the last incident of that in England. So great, England. You finally went from drawn and quarterings to no more axes. Good for you.
That doesn't include guillotines, though, right?
I don't think so.
That's just
I think that's
a manual. And it's funny, it was kind of botched too. I think that's a good case in point. Like, I think this is our last one, guys.
Yeah, enough.
Keep missing it.
Yeah,
missing the mark.
Threw the head in the crowd because we were so pissed. And this was also England's last armed rebellion, which is interesting. Yeah. Because again, this is fairly modern times. Like, we're talking early 1800s, Industrial Revolution, like not that long ago in history, you know,
Can we say
200 years
for
ago.
America?
I don't know what's going to happen to America. What year is it?
1817.
It's fine.
Some people think that.
Yeah.
And there was all the other people that they arrested too.
Yes. Which I don't have it written down, but there was like a lot of, you know, stern warnings and arrests. Let's see what you said. Okay. Oh, those were big ones, actually. So 14 people were actually sent to Australia. Mm-hmm. So at that point, they were kind of like exporting people, I guess. They were saying, like, as punishment, you have to go, if it's imprisoned in Australia or work the land in Australia, whatever their sentence was. Yeah, sent to Australia. And then what else do you have right there? You have 19 were imprisoned, 12 were released.
That's nice.
And I think a couple got strong verbal warnings.
Yeah, there's always the verbal warning at the end. Mm-hmm. Gosh, to feel like, I don't know, for our Australian listeners, how that makes you feel that people were just sent to your land as punishment.
Right. I mean, that happened in more than just Australia. Like, it reminds me of the movie Ever After, when they're like, oh, you're going to be shipped to the Americas with the thieves and the criminals. So it's like, I think that was a kind of typical punishment. It's like any new world that we have that needs labor, or you know what I mean?
A labor situation.
I don't think it's like, oh, Australia is so bad, go there.
Go find a spider and have fun. Hang out with the javelinas.
The dingoes.
And it makes me think of the 19 Crimes wine, because for those who like to drink grocery store wine like us, when you do the app, do they still do that, or was that just when it came out?
I think they still do it. Yeah.
How you can put your phone up on the
wine label.
The wine label of the prisoner.
Yeah.
And it always, like, he turns alive and he tells his story. But it's because there were 19 crimes that could send you to Australia.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those were the Australian prisoners.
Put me on that boat. I'd love to go to Australia. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Go do a rebellion in England. Anyway, so thank you for the recommendation. That was such a period of, we haven't done an industrial revolution type rebellion before.
I don't think so. And again, we've said this so many times on our show, but like, I love just putting some history in the grander context. It's like we always talk about French Revolution, but we never talk about what happens after.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh yeah, like Napoleon took over, like, and then he was exiled, and then he tried to come back, and like amidst that there was, you know, stuff going on with the English economy, and you had all of these revolts that were people so angry they were being replaced by machines.
Yeah.
So it's cool when you can zoom out a little and be like, oh yeah, it wasn't just about these specific people in these specific places or time frames. It's like, it's so obviously it's all connected, but you forget that when you're learning history. Sometimes you forget that, oh yeah, like these things are all happening at the same time in the world, and then they again kind of come these big full circle moments where they're connected.
Yeah.
It's really
Out
cool.
here in Arizona, they had looters and gold rush and
Yeah, what was
all
going
kinds of
on
fun stuff.
early
Let's
1800s.
look at your Arizona ghost town map.
There we
behind
go.
us.
Yeah.
Um,
Arizona wasn't even a state until 1912.
That's true.
So there wasn't a whole lot here. We were a desert for a long
Yeah, I
time.
guess more like 50 years later was like Wyatt Earp and Tombstone and all that.
That's true, yeah.
But not that far off from all of this.
No,
So.
I actually just went to Scottsdale Museum over last weekend,
Oh, yeah?
and I learned a little bit about, like, again, why they settled in the desert. And
Mhm.
it was because I believe Navajo Nation had already created like a series of waterways to bring water like to their area, and then the settlers came and they overtook that.
And trains and
and all of that, and then westward expansion. But it was much later than a lot of places because it was a desert and so
Yeah,
freaking
'cause
hot.
we're basically Australia.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, any final words?
Not this evening.